Everybody, thank you for joining us today. So this presentation, again, as we said, this is going to walk through the different types of prescription types. What we have the regular eRx and then the controlled substances prescribing. We're going to just walk through the enrollment processes of these. So in Charm, you have your electronic prescribing. It allows you to transmit prescriptions electronically to the patient's pharmacy of choice. And it also, you can receive pharmacy initiated messages back to the prescriber system. Charm is integrated with SureScripts for our eRx services, and SureScripts is it is linked with around 74,000 pharmacies. So for our EPCS versus our eRx for non-controlled, you can see for EPCS, it does allow you to e-prescribe controlled substances as well as non-controlled drugs, whereas the eRx only allows you to prescribe the non-controlled drugs. EPCS is $250 per provider per year. There's also multiple years that you can buy for different price breaks. So for example, 1 year would be $250. 2 years would be $450, 3 years would be $650. So you do get a $50 price break if you purchase multiple years. For the eRx for non-controlled, there is an initial $25 fee per provider. That is for the identity proofing, and then it would be $10 per provider per month. For EPCS, the identity proofing is done by ExoStar. And whereas the identity proofing for the eRx is through Experian. EPCS, when you're prescribing controlled substances, it does require a two-factor authentication for signing and e-prescribing controlled substances. And that is done through an app that would be on your phone, or there is a hard token, which is a little hardware device that's a keychain that would be included in that subscription and mailed out to you. For the eRx for non-controlled, two-factor authentication is not required. For EPCS, refills are allowed for all CS drugs except for Schedule 2. And for regular non-controlled, refills are allowed for all non-controlled substances. So next, I'll walk through the EPCS enrollment process. So when it comes to EPCS, you will need to upload a number of documents. So when you are enabling EPCS services, you'll need a copy of your medical license, your state license, and your DEA license. You'll need a photo proof identity. So this is a government issued ID, such as a driver's license or a passport. There's also an eRx enrollment form that you'll need to fill out. And you'll have to have in your profile your NPI number, social security number, the facility address, and the prescriber contact in the NPI registry. You'll also need to upload your DEA number, of course. So as a part of the verification process, the documents will be submitted and then verified by our team. And then somebody will reach out to you via the phone number that is in the NPI registry. So the facility address and the contact details in the NPI registry will need to be up to date to expedite the EPCS process, or else essentially they'll reach out to you and ask you to update that at that time. So the above account verification process takes 2 to 4 business days based on your NPI registry data and your availability to verify the NPI data. So the first time that you're going to be requesting the setup, you're going to navigate to the Settings RX EPCS Manager screen. You'll upload your DEA registry documents. So you can see here on this screenshot, you'll have the enrollment form that you can download here. You'll just print that out and fill it out and scan it. Or if you have a PDF fillable program, you could do that as well. You'll upload your DEA license. Oops. your DEA license, your state medical license, your government issue photo ID, and the prescriber facility NPI here. And you can see here, this view will not be displayed once the EPCS setup is configured for your practice account. So for all other prescribers, this is what the first prescriber will do. If you do have multiple prescribers that need to fill this out, once one single one is verified, you can just send these directly through support using a secure link. And you can get that either from support directly, or you can contact your sales representative. We're just going to go over the DEA requirement. So 2 individuals must be involved in the enrollment process. One is the EPCS admin manager, and the other is the EPCS approving DEA registrant. So for the EPCS admin manager, it can be a practice admin, office manager, or staff. If you are a solo practice, you can use any of your family members or your spouse or anybody. You would just need an additional profile created with the office manager role. The administrative staff, the admin manager, verifies the prescriber's license and authorize the prescribers. Then they'll raise the approval request for the prescriber to sign an e-prescribed CS drugs. The EPCS approving DEA registrant will be the one who is actually going to be prescribing. The very first one will be the supervising prescriber. The first person in the practice to get the identity proof to obtain the 2-factor authentication, and they will be approving the CS signing requests raised by the EPCS admin manager for themselves and their other prescribers. So here are the EPCS enrollment steps. The first step, the practice admin or the office manager, they're going to assign members to the EPCS admin manager and the EPCS approving DEA registrant roles. They will purchase the subscriptions and then associate those subscriptions to the prescribers. Step 2, it will be done by the admin manager. And that admin manager will authorize and verify prescribers' licenses, essentially just making sure that everything has been uploaded and that the data in the system is accurate and up to date. And then they will raise the approval for signing the CS drugs. Number 3 would be for the prescribers. They're going to go through the identity proofing process and obtain 2-factor authentication. The step 4 will be the approving DEA registrant. They're going to approve the CS requests raised by the EPCS admin manager. And then finally, the Charm team will enable the EPCS service so that you can prescribe drugs. And so here is a brief workflow, essentially what we just went over. We have a practice manager here. They're going to configure the roles and purchase a subscription. The first time, they will associate this license to the approving DEA registrant. Also, once the admin manager role has been assigned, the admin manager will verify the DEA license validity. And then once the EPCS approving DEA registrant has completed the identity proofing and obtained the 2-factor authentication, it'll just go through the logical access controls here. And we're going to show you this workflow in a video. So I know this can be a bit confusing with all of the different names here. So again, here, we're going to go over the steps one more time. The practice manager will configure the admin manager and the DEA registrant, purchase the subscription, associate those subscriptions to the prescribers. And so here's a brief video to show how to do that. First step, we're going to go into settings, EPCS manager. And up here, we have the EPCS administrators. When I hit edit, you'll select the admin manager and the registrant and just hit save. Next, the EPCS subscription page would be here. This is going to appear after the first person is verified. You can select the product. In this case, we're going to do 1 year. We're going to place this order. We're going to agree to the terms of service, and you're going to hit the associate button and associate it with the prescriber who will be registering. And so now that subscription has been purchased and has been associated with, in this case, Timothy Applegate. Step 2, again, the EPCS admin manager will perform this step. They're going to authorize and verify the prescriber's licenses and then raise approval for the request for signing CS drugs. So again, we're just going to go to settings. We're going to go to the EPCS manager page. The DEA validity is going to be selected to valid, and they're going to click this request change button. Change that to approve, and you can see here, approve request has been submitted on this date. And so now the EPCS admin manager is essentially done at this point. So step 3, again, is going to be performed by the prescribers. So going through the identity proofing process to obtain a second factor authentication, and ExoStar follows 2 ways of identity proofing. One is remote proofing using a knowledge-based questions on financial and personal history. So have your credit report ready. The second is if you fail that, they do have webcam proofing. So if ExoStar is unable to pin the user in their directory, a webcam-based proofing approach will be followed up on that. And that can take most of the time. It will, they'll have availability within the next day or two, depending on the time of year. Usually around the beginning of the year, I've seen up to 2 weeks for that webcam proofing. So when it comes to your financial and personal history questions, having your credit report is highly recommended, as if you do fail, it could delay the process based on the webcam proofing availability. And so again, we're going to go back to settings, the eRx page here. We're going to check the registration process checklist, and we can see that step 1 and 2 have been done, and we are on the start the EPCS registration process. Now, all of this information that you're seeing here cannot be changed on this screen. This will be done through your profile. So if any of these need to be changed, you'll need to go back into your profile and just edit those there. Now, this software token here, you can see this mobile number. You'll be downloading an app on that. So you'll need to make sure that whichever mobile number is configured here is going to be the mobile number of the phone, essentially, that you're going to have with you when you're going to be prescribing. So now it has a user agreement. We can just navigate to I agree. On this page, again, you'll need to update in your profile if you need, but it's going to, let me just jump back there. It's going to ask you to enter in your date of birth here, the zip code, and the last 4 digits of your social. So again, that's just going to be essentially another step of verification. You'll hit I agree, and then it's going to ask you some questions about your personal credit profile. So you can see here, it asks some questions about which bank you use for a loan, if you open a home equity line or credit loan around this time, who was it with? What was your average pricing or your average cost for your monthly payment, and things like that. So it also does auto loans and other information. So those are the kind of questions that the identity proofing is going to ask you. And always remember, there is a none of the above does not apply. A lot of times they'll have some kind of trick question where you didn't open a loan in that particular year. So just read through the questions very carefully. Now, right here on this step, you can see register your hardware one-time password token. So when you purchase the EPCS subscription, it will the ExoStar will mail you a hard token, which is a small keychain device with a button that'll generate a one-time password. Typically, when you first purchase it, and you're registering, you're not going to have that at that time. So you can just hit skip to next. Now, if for some reason you purchased it and you didn't get around to registering and you do have that, you're going to just enter the serial number on the back of that device, click the button on it. It's going to generate a 6-digit code. That's good for 20 seconds. You'll enter that code at one-time password 1. You're going to click that again. After 20 seconds, a new code will come up and you'll type it into one-time password 2. In this, we're just going to go ahead and hit skip to next. And it's going to pull up your OTP codes. So it's going to select your country, your phone number, and your email address, and you're going to register your phone. Now, at this point, you're going to download an app, and it will prompt you to do that. It's called the Twilio Authy app. And once that's registered, it will, when you go into that app, it'll pop up and it'll generate a soft OTP. And you'll enter that 6-digit number, your phone number and email address. And now there will actually be an additional step where it's going to text you a code separately, not inside the app. It's just going to send you a text message code. You'll enter that in. And that would link essentially your Charm account, your Authy app, and your cell phone number all together. And so now we can see that the status has been activated. And over here with your OTP details, you can set your preferred token so that you don't need to select it every time. And if we hit our, now we have the approving registrant to approve the CX drugs. So step 4, approve the CS drug signing request raised by the EPCS admin manager for self and other prescribers. And so for this, the person who has now set up that 2-factor authentication is going to navigate to settings, EPCS manager, and under CS logical access controls, hit manage. You're going to type your Charm password in, select your token and the 6-digit number that it generates, and hit verify. And now the approval status will be activated, and you can change it from waiting for approval to approved. And now you have completed the registration process. The next step is just for our team to enable it on the back end. So they enable the EPCS service for the providers, and the prescriber can now e-prescribe CS drugs. Now, we will be notified of this. However, if you do need this expedited, you could reach out to support or your sales rep and just let them know, hey, I've completed this process, and we can send a quick message to our team to get them to process that for you. Now, the next step we're going to do is we're just going to walk through the eRx service for non-controlled and that enrollment process. Now, this process is a little bit shorter than that one. So you can see here, we can ensure that you'll need to ensure that the facility address, phone, and fax details are entered. If you do not have a fax service, you can enter in the phone number again. You'll enter the prescriber's mobile number, NPI, Social Security, and the DEA, which is optional for the non-controlled, as you don't really need your DEA to prescribe. You'll download the eRx enrollment form and manually sign it. You'll upload the filled form, the medical license, and the photo identity proof, much like the last process. This time you'll pay that one-time verification fee of $25 using the prescriber's personal credit card. So again, that purchasing it with your personal credit card is another step in the identity verification process. You'll go through the Experian identity proofing process and enter the identification or the activation code that you receive. So again, we're going to go to settings, account, my profile, and you'll just make sure that all of this information has been filled. So there's your mobile number. Again, the mobile number is is definitely required for the EPCS registration process. It does ask for it for this process as well, but the mobile number is 100% required for EPCS. Whereas this one, you won't need to buy an app or anything like that, or download the app rather. So under here, your ID qualifiers, this is where you'll have your drop downs and you can select and enter in all of that information. We're going to go to RX, eRx, and we're going to proceed with eRx for non-controlled. Download the e-prescription form. Fill this out. If you do want pharmacy refill requests in Charm, make sure that you check off yes here. And then once this is filled out and scanned and uploaded, you can upload all of your other PDFs. So for instance, your driver's license, your medical's license, and the eRx enrollment form, and hit submit. Then you'll hit the eRx verification pay. Just fill out your billing information. Again, use your personal credit card for this step. Go ahead and hit I agree and pay now. The payment will process after 72 hours. Now, once you receive that notification that the payment was processed, you can just return to the eRx page and click the Experian validation step. Again, it'll just ask you to confirm all of this information, hit submit, and it'll ask you questions very much like the ExoStar verification process, asking about the average payments and different banks that you had loans taken out, and you'll submit that. And once you have passed this eRx verification, we're actually going to mail you an activation code to your home address. Once that is done, you're actually going to go to your account and change the password to that activation code. So you'll enter your current password and enter that activation code as your new password. And once that is updated, that tells us that you've received the activation code. You'll be activated for eRx. And then once that's done, you can change your password back to whatever you'd like. So these videos, we do have videos for the EPCS enrollment and the eRx enrollment located on our YouTube channel. And you can navigate to charmhealth.com, EHR, EPCS for some other information. And again, this is going to be recorded. So this will also be available for you if you need to watch this again. And so that's essentially the entire process for enrollment for both of these. And so now I will jump over to the Q&A. So for the answered questions already, is there a token for EPCS subscription and extra fee opposed to doing it from my cell phone? So the hard token is included in the $250. Now there is an option to purchase the regular $250, and you can actually purchase an extra token for an additional fee. So if you do want multiple hard tokens, that is possible to purchase the extra fee, but it is included in the $250. Now, Christina also asked, what if you don't have a smartphone? So if you don't have a smartphone, you'll just need to wait until that hard token is mailed to you. So once you purchase that, ExoStar will mail that hard token out to you, to the office. And so if you do not have a smartphone, you just need to wait for that. And then you could set up the process with your hard token. So let's see, as far as the compounded medication software we use now is almost impossible to prescribe these meds. Will this be an issue? So when it comes to compounded medications, you can prescribe compounded medications using our custom drugs options. Now, the thing in my experience, there are custom compounded pharmacies in the SureScripts database. However, some of them are not. So typically, as I mentioned before, there are about 74,000 pharmacies available. So what you can do is actually, prior to purchasing this, if compounded medications is something that is very much needed by your practice, if you go into Charm and you go and search the pharmacies, that is actually connected to the SureScripts database. So you can actually check what pharmacies are in the database prior to prior to actually purchasing that. Now, the other option would be to fax that. So if they're not in the SureScript network, you can enter in those custom compounded pharmacies into the directory, and then you can just fax those prescriptions over to them. So for Rebecca, she asked, how does one know if the eRx is good to go? The eRx status of the account can be viewed from settings, RX, eRx, and it'll have a list of all of your providers. And next to it, it'll say enabled or enable now. So you'll be able to view that if it's enabled there. Can a pharmacy be added to eRx? So when it comes to the pharmacies will need to be added to the SureScripts network. So again, you can add them into your own personal directory that can be used to fax them. However, that pharmacy, essentially you would need to reach out to the pharmacy and they would need to be added to the SureScripts network. I know that we have reached out to SureScripts before and had them correct pharmacies that their information was incorrect, or if a pharmacy moved. So yes, it is possible to add that. We'll have to reach out to SureScripts to do that. And also the pharmacy would need to participate in the SureScripts network. What if we have two practices in two different states? The EPCS RX seems to only be working in the state that my DE number is registered under. So you will need to, when it comes to two different states, typically when you go into your profile, you'll need a DEA for the other state. And so you can upload multiple DEA numbers for all the states that you're registered in Charm. So I think that you'll need to register for a DEA number in the state, in the other state. Let's see right here, the next question. Right now, we are all paper and integrating into electronics. How will we receive a refill request? So when it comes to refill requests, you can enable so the patient essentially can go onto their patient portal and set a refill request to you. That's just going to be done by via the messages. Now, however, when you are receiving digital requests from the pharmacy, under your prescription section here, you'll see pharmacy requests. They'll populate here, and then you could just go ahead and hit represcribe. Now, for demoing an example of setting an eRx, again, we're going to need to use a little bit of imagination. But again, on our YouTube channel, the EPCS registration video, that does have an example of that, so you can see how it is done completely. But essentially, if you go to your patient's file, what you could do is navigate under medications and hit plus prescription. Now, this is the same if you're in a chart note as well. When you hit the plus prescription page, essentially this is going to pop up. Now you can select a drug here. So if we do, let's see, okay, here, we're going to hit prescribe. You're going to fill out all of your information here. And we're going to have 0 refills. And you're going to select add and sign. Now, the next step it's going to pop up. Typically, when you are set up with EPCS, the next step is going to be transmit. And so once this is signed, I'm going to select fax, or actually let's do paper. But typically, when you're set up with EPCS, you'll sign this and you're going to have a ready to transmit button. You're going to check that off and you're going to hit transmit. And then rather than pulling up the paper, the next step, it's actually going to go directly to the a screen, and it's going to ask you to enter in your Charm password and your 6-digit one-time code that is generated by your Authy app or your hard token. Now, once that's done and you hit transmit, it's going to automatically pop up a screen that looks like this. And then you can search the pharmacy. and then add that pharmacy and then transmit it. Now, these pharmacies can be marked as the preferred pharmacy. And so if the patient has a preferred pharmacy selected, rather than this window popping up, there'll be a checkbox that just says use preferred pharmacy, and then you can hit transmit. So again, it's not great because I'm not set up on this system, but if you do go to our YouTube channel and look at the EPCS registration video, once it walks you through the registration, it does have an example of the prescription when it's all set up. So if we are new to Charm, how long should we expect this approval process to take, start to finish? So again, if you're doing EPCS, the first thing you'll do is you'll upload all of that. We do ask for 2 to 4 days for the verification, and then you'll have to go through the registration process. So the registration process, once you're verified, it only takes about 30 minutes. And then if you are verified and you pass the ExoStar, then typically you'll be enabled by the following morning. So you could give yourself about a week. Now, the only other thing is I would encourage you to give yourself a longer time, just because in the unlikely event that you do fail the webcam, or I'm sorry, the ExoStar verification, you'll need to schedule a webcam meeting. And again, as I said earlier, usually you can get one. Let's say it's Tuesday today and you failed today. Usually you'll be able to get a webcam meeting by the next day or like Thursday, based on their availability. Now, at the turn of this year, there was a high demand for those. And so when it comes to that, it was a 2-week wait for that webcam meeting. Now, I've also been told that you can call ExoStar and they can verify that. If you do get through, they can verify it that day that you get through. So if you do have a webcam meeting that is far in the future, you can call the ExoStar support. And I've also heard of people getting verified relatively quickly because they got through on the support line there. For the eRx, it is the first, you'll have to upload those forms and pay the payment. We ask for 72 hours for that payment. And then once you've finished the registration, we do mail you out, and that takes 3 to 5 business days to mail it to you. So again, considering for non-business days like the weekend and holidays, you could give yourself a week for that. So I would say 10 days to 2 weeks to be safe. However, it can be done in as little as 3. This one I have tried to validate through Experian, but the questions they ask about the credit, I can't seem to correct it. Experian is not helpful. How can I fix this? So question, month, date's not correct. So if you can't seem to pass the Experian verification, you could try it again. Remember that there is always that this is incorrect or does not apply to you. So if there is some sort of question that is incorrect, it is possible for Experian to have incorrect information on you. So I would reach out to Charm support and we can contact Experian, and we'll get all the information that we need from you and we can get that processed. Okay, cool. And I see now we do now facilitate EPCS accounts for multiple states. Again, reach out to support and our team can help you out with that. Let's see here. Does Charm have a fax feature for faxing RXs to pharmacies that are not on SureScript? Yes, we do have an electronic fax system. And so you can fax through the messages section. And what you can do is navigate to your settings here, and all of the pharmacies that are not in the system, you can add to your directory under pharmacy. And what this allows you to do is when you are faxing, you can just type in the name of the pharmacy and it will auto-populate the fax number for you. So it's just a way that you can add shortcuts so that you're not constantly looking up the pharmacies. So for Debbie, the list of pharmacies here are, if you navigate to any of your patients, and you can go under patient details, pharmacy. And so here, when you hit add, it'll bring up the database of pharmacies here, and you can search based on the name, city, zip code, fax number, address, and the state. Let's see. So again, so it's not possible to obtain multiple DEA numbers. So I guess what you'll need to do is, rather than putting in multiple DEA numbers in your settings here, typically what people do is you'll go to your profile. And if you can't have multiples, then I've seen people add multiples. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention and the numbers were the same, but you would just select your DEA number here and then select the state. So you would just have multiple instances of that DEA number with the state selected. And I'm sure there's a way to register multiple states on one DEA number. Again, if you reach out to support, they can walk you through and give you some pointers on that process. So it's 855-571-5557 is the support number here. And if you go to charmhealth.com on any page, you scroll all the way down and we go to company, you can select contact us. And you can see here, our phone number is 855-571-5557. Also, on charmhealth.com, we do have a live chat here. So you can also hit chat now and then just ask the support agent directly there if you prefer chat.